Good morning, students. Today we are going to discuss one really significant poem from the 10th standard CBSE literature book First Flight. We have before us the Ball poem by John Berryman. But before we get to the poem, its summary, analyze it with great details, and talk about the literary figures used, let's start with a brief glance at the poet's biography. John Berryman was born on 25th October 1914 in Oklahoma. He died on 7th January 1972 in Minnesota. His notable works include Homage to Mistress Bradstreet, 77 Dream Songs, the Dream Songs Collection, Recovery, which is an account of his struggle against alcoholism. This great poet was awarded with the Bollinger Prize. He won the Pulitzer Prize and the National Book Award. He was also elected a Fellow of the Academy of American Poets and served as a Chancellor from 1968 until his death. Now let us talk about the themes of this particular poem. For themes, we have the innocence of childhood versus experience of adulthood. We also have coming to terms with the process of aging, and finally, awareness of responsibility. Now let us have a pictographic representation of this boy who has lost his ball. An ultimate shaking grief fixes the boy as he stands rigid, trembling, staring down all his young days into the harbor where his ball went. If we look carefully into the eyes of this boy, we can see the pain he is undergoing. He is staring down, standing rigid. He is staring down, maybe at the stream, which is taking his ball away to some corner, to some harbor where he can never reach it again. This river, this ball, has given him his first taste of loss. But before we interpret further, let's read the poem first. What is the boy now who has lost his ball? What? What is he to do? I saw it go merrily bouncing down the street and then merrily over. There it is in the water. No use to say, oh, there are other balls. An ultimate shaking grief fixes the boy as he stands rigid, trembling, staring down all his young days into the harbor where his ball went. I would not intrude on him. A dime, another ball, is worthless. Now he senses his first responsibility in a world of possessions. People will take balls. Balls will be lost always, little boy, and no one buys a ball back. Money is external. He's learning. Well behind his desperate eyes, the epistemology of loss, how to stand up, knowing what every man must one day know and most know many days, how to stand up. Now, before we move further into the poem, before we start analyzing it, let us talk for a moment and think why should we read this poem? How this poem affects us? Because, frankly speaking, in this world of yearly gaming consoles or regular upgradation of mobile phones, it is difficult to understand Berryman's poetry. After all, it is not about the change that is expected, but rather about the things lost in that change. This poem is about loss, memories, possessions, all the things that we hold true, all the things that we cling to, slip through our fingers like a fistful of sand into the stream of time. This poem is not just about growing up, it is about growing old, coming to terms with our age and finding acceptance in our heart for all that we lose in the river of time. This poem tells us that once we really know the meaning of loss, we learn how to stand up on our own. That's when we really, really grow up. Now let us talk about the summary of this poem. On a surface level, this poem is really simple. It is basically about a boy who has lost his ball. The ball has bounced away into the water, and the boy can only stand and watch the ball floating away with the water. There is nothing he can do. Balls can be bought again, but the boy grieves the loss of all the memories which were associated with that particular ball of his, and now were all lost. The poet decides not to disturb the boy as he tries to come to terms with that loss. He knows that those who can cope with that loss are the ones who can stand tall. Now, this is the surface level summary of the poem, but this poem has a deep meaning, a really philosophical one. So now let us interpret that particular meaning of this poem. You see, the loss of a ball in itself is nothing. We lose many balls while playing in our childhood days. A ball that is lost can be replaced with a new one, but never with the same one. The memories we associate with it can never be bought back. This is true not just in the case of a ball, but for all the things, persons we hold dear in our life. We nurture such memories in our hearts, keep them alive, water them until they become a part of us. They start to define us. What we need to understand is that we came empty handed, and when the time comes, we will leave all our possessions behind. We really don't own anything, or anyone for that matter. Money can buy possessions, but that is only external. The memories that we make are ours as long as we are alive, and they create this illusion of belonging. Loss is the only permanence, and the sooner we learn that, the sooner we learn to stand on our own, stand strong without the illusion of earthly possessions. That's when we remain no longer a little boy grieving over some lost ball. Now let us talk about the tone and setting of this poem. The poet speaks to us in a frank and sincere tone, though he begins in a deceptively offhand manner talking about some lost ball. Soon, deftly, he turns our attention towards something far greater than just a ball. He stands away from the boy, observing him, but that doesn't mean that he doesn't care. He understands what the boy is going through, but even more than that, he understands that what the boy is going through is necessary for him. His tone, thus, is full of the milk of human understanding. From his tone, we can understand that the poet too has undergone the same emotional turmoil, just like this little boy. Perhaps he peers into the past, and the little boy is none other but his own younger self. This brings the autobiographical note in his poem, where he successfully conveys much in a deceptively offhand manner. The poem is set outside in the poem. The boy was playing outside when somehow the ball went bouncing away into some water body and was lost forever. In a way, this outside setting is important as it symbolically brings out us of our cocoon shell of safety and illusion and exposes us to the real life experience, which helps us not only to learn the meaning of loss but also teaches us how to deal with it. It is this experience that helps us grow. Now, let us talk about the character elements in this poem. There is obviously the boy and the ball which he has lost, and then there is the poet who stands a bit away and observes the boy. Now let us start our analysis. We will first analyze the loss. What is the boy now who has lost his ball? What? What is he to do? I saw it go merrily bouncing down the street and then merrily over. There it is in the water. No use to say, oh, there are other balls. On the surface level, it's just a ball that the boy was playing, which goes bouncing away in the water, beyond the reach of its owner. However, on a deeper level, it indicates the loss of childhood, as the ball symbolically represents childhood and how it goes away, taking away all the careless days under the sun with it. It's not possible to bring it back. Its passing is the only natural thing to happen. Balls lost can always be replaced, but the memories associated and lost with it are gone forever. Other balls are there, but so are other memories, and one cannot replace the other. Let us now take a look at some of the words and phrases. What is the boy now? A boy who has lost his ball should be where and not what. For example, he should be in a shop or to his parents for a new ball. By using the word what, the poet draws our attention to the mental state of the boy. The repetition emphasizes the emotional turmoil he is going through. This ball was his first responsibility, something that he owned himself, and that brought his first bitter taste of loss. Merrily means full of high spirits or gleefully. Bouncing is something which is lively, animated, rebounding on the ground in a lively manner. Oh, there are other balls. There are other balls in the shop, indeed, and therefore no need to worry over the loss. But try telling this to a boy who has just had his first taste of loss. Such words are no consolation for him. Moving on to the next part of our analysis, here we will analyze the process in grief. An ultimate shaking grief fixes the boy as he stands rigid, trembling, staring down all his young days into the harbor where his ball went. I would not intrude on him. A dime, another ball is worthless. Now he senses his first responsibility in a world of possessions. The poet draws our attention to the boy. The boy was playing and his ball went into the water. A normal, everyday sight, and those who observed it perhaps went back to their work knowing that the boy would run to the shop for a new ball or go to his parents. As the poet draws our attention, we realize that the boy is still standing there, standing rigid and trembling with grief unspeakable. Is it just for the ball? No. He now realizes suddenly that all the memories that were associated with the ball has flown away. All his childhood days, of which the ball was a witness, has flown away in the river of time. He now realizes the value of responsibility. To preserve his memory is his responsibility, and nothing else can help him to that end. He is, in a sense, alone. And alone is he when he gets his first lessons. The things we are responsible for are the things which will always leave us. And the heart that has loved once shall by love be broken in two. Let us now take a look at some of the words and phrases. Ultimate, the most extreme of its kind, utmost, shaking grief, intense grief that shakes someone to the very core of their being, rigid, appearing stiff and unyielding. For example, his face rigid with pain, trembling, to shake involuntarily as with fear or cold, or in the case of this poem, grief. All his young days into the harbor where his ball went. Literally, the place where the ball has been carried away by the water, the added significance is of his young days, which represents his childhood. The poet is talking about the loss of the boy's childhood. Intrude means to come in without invitation or permission. Dime is a coin of the United States worth 10 cents. Worthless means useless or lacking worth. Let us now come to our final analysis, where we will analyze the lesson experience. People will take balls. Balls will be lost always, little boy. And no one buys a ball back. Money is external. He is learning, well behind his desperate eyes, the epistemology of loss, how to stand up, knowing what every man must one day know and most know many days, how to stand up. This is the section where the poet really drives his message home. Not only we will lose things because they are meant to be lost, like our childhood, but also there will always be people who will take things away from us. Nothing is eternal. Sometimes people themselves go away from us. Maybe some misunderstanding, maybe even death. Loss is the only permanence in our life. The boy today is crying, but he is also learning. He is learning that money cannot buy everything. He is learning the true meaning of loss. It is not just a ball, it is all the things, memories that he holds dear. This is a lesson common for all, and only by learning this lesson, a man learns how to stand up on his own. Now, let us take a look at some of the words responsibility. moral, legal, or mental accountability. Possessions means owning something or belongings. Balls will be lost always. Balls symbolically represent all that we hold dear, our possessions. We are bound to lose them. No one buys a ball back. We can always buy a new ball, but the one which we have lost, we can never buy that one back. Same with memories. We can always make new ones, but the ones already made can never be relived again. External, having merely the outward appearance. Well behind his desperate eyes, the learning welling up behind his desperate eyes in the form of tears. Epistemology of loss. It is a study or the theory of the nature of something, in this case, the nature of loss. Now, let's talk about some important things that we should consider. For example, the ball. A boy lost the ball he was playing with. Several such balls are lost every day. The boy is really sad because of his loss. Many boys get sad when they lose something, especially their playthings. However, with some deft strokes of his pen, Berryman injects in this everyday loss of a ball something deeply philosophical. The ball ceases to be just a ball and becomes something universal. It represents the loss of our childhood, our youth. It represents the loss of our near and dear ones. It signifies the loss of all those things which we hold dear. And its loss culminates in the ultimate lesson of acceptance. In fact, it is this progress from denial to acceptance, this learning about and accepting our responsibilities, the understanding of the universal nature and reach of laws are what that take this poem from this mundane everyday to something sublime. That is something which is of far higher worth. The next thing that we should discuss is the personal element, the Berryman touch. Early in his life, Berryman was traumatized by the sudden appearance of death. His father committed suicide when he was just 12 years old. Berryman never recovered from this loss and the shock of it. The man who showed great technical control in his poems struggled throughout his life with emotional instability and heavy drinking. On 7th January 1972, he himself committed suicide by jumping off a bridge in Minneapolis. There is an autobiographical touch in almost all his poems. One can but wonder whether the boy in this particular poem was Berryman himself or not. The opening sentence, "What is the boy now?" is perhaps indicative of Berryman plumbing in the depths of his own psyche to search for that boy that he once had been. Perhaps the whole poem is his terribly frank attempt to come to terms with the loss that besmirched his own childhood and had kept his adulthood captive in its clutches. So, this is his attempt to come to terms with his own loss and move on with life. How do we know that? We know that because of something else. Let us now look at the man. This is poet John Berryman, and now take a look at his own confession. You see, the poem that we have in our CBSE textbook is not the completed version. The final lines have been removed. So here we have those lines. How to stand up, and gradually light returns to the street. A whistle blows. The ball is out of sight. Soon, part of me will explore the deep and dark floor of the harbor. I am everywhere. I suffer and move. My mind and my heart move with all that move me under the water or whistling. I am not a little boy. These final lines clearly mark how the poet becomes one with the little boy, affirming his plumbing of the deep and dark floor of the harbor, which is symbolic of memory. I mean, the harbor where the ball, representing perhaps his childhood, is lost. He confesses his sufferings and at the same time even when he seems to be drowning underwater, which itself may be symbolic of the overwhelming pain. He talks about continuing to move, to live, to grow amid all that pain. It is one supreme affirmation of life and culminates for the time being in his conviction: I am not a little boy. Now let us move on to the forms and figures in this poem. For example, alliteration, repetition of same consonant sounds at the beginning of words in close succession, as in who has lost his, possessions people, the b sound in buys a ball back, m sound in man must, most know many, etc. We also have assonance, repetition of the same vowel sounds in close succession as in the a sound in there are other balls, o sound in lost his ball, etc. We also have anaphora, which is the repetition of same word or phrase at the beginning of each sentence or clause. For example, the repetition of what at the beginning of lines 1 and 2 and merrily at the beginning of the third and fourth line. Then we have repetition. Same word is repeated back to back for added emphasis, as in what, balls, balls, etc. Then we have consonants, which is the repetition of same consonant sounds in close succession, but unlike alliteration, these repetitions can happen anywhere in the words, as in senses first responsibility. The s sound appears in different places, but they are placed in close succession. Finally, there is enjambment. The lines run into the next without pause or break, as in the second and third lines, and again in the sixth, seventh, and eighth lines, etc. Now let us discuss the title of this poem. The poem takes the simple loss of a ball and turns it into something of epic proportion. The ball stands for all the things we ever held important. The loss of it represents all the losses we ever faced, because of the significance that the poet associates with the ball in this poem. As title, the ball poem is perfect. So here we end our discussion. If you have any questions, leave a comment.